Ethiopia has taken a bold step towards a green future by becoming the first nation to ban the import of gas-powered vehicles. This drastic move, fueled by the desire to reduce fuel import costs and leverage its abundant hydropower resources, has positioned Ethiopia as a pioneer in African EV adoption. While this ambitious transition offers significant environmental and economic benefits, challenges remain, including limited charging infrastructure, low motorization rates, and the need for robust policy implementation to ensure a successful transition. Well, joining me on this conversation is Yuma Sasaki, CEO and founder, Dodai. Thank you so much for joining me today, Yuma.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right. Now, Ethiopia became the first country in the world to ban the import of gas-powered passenger vehicles. I mean, what necessitated that?
A couple of things. First of all, the world trend toward electric from the fuel-powered vehicles. But at the same time, Ethiopia has one of the cheapest electricity, and it has a surplus, and also huge burden on the government in terms of forex subsidies to fuel spending. So it's very natural for Ethiopian government to move toward to accelerate transition to electric mobility.
But there's also the talk about, environmental pollution and all of that. Was that really an issue for Ethiopia, or would you say that the bulk of this decision was based on wanting to save money based on the amount it was spending on the import of fuel and also petrol-powered vehicles?
So yeah, there are a couple of reasons, and definitely the saving money to boost the economy and then making people's move relatively easier than it is now, and then saving money so that they can spend those money on other stuff. That's definitely one of the biggest reasons. Yeah.
Well, interestingly, when you talk about saving money, at the end of the day, the people who are going to buy these EVs need to pay much more to get them. So what benefit does it sort of offer users at the end of the day, or is it a long-term benefit? I mean, a benefit that comes after so many years.
So that's a very interesting thing. I'm from Japan. Yeah, Japan, in Japan or most of the country, that's the case, but that's not the case in Ethiopia because 200% to 300% tax on fuel vehicles, while it's basically 0 to 15% tax on electric vehicles. So surprisingly and interestingly, in Ethiopia, electric vehicles, even for initial cost, it's cheaper than fuel-powered vehicles. On top of that, in terms of gasoline versus electric, it's basically 95% cheaper to use electric compared to fuel. So in the particular case of Ethiopia, already both initial costs and operating costs significantly cheaper to use electric vehicles from a user's point of view.
Well, that remains to be debated because, I mean, one of the things I did was to look around and see what some of the users were saying. And they were complaining about certain things, talking about after buying these EVs, they find out that it's sort of, I mean, it's a difficult thing for them. They find it difficult to charge their batteries. And then when the parts, maybe there are issues, they do not have mechanics who can actually work on these vehicles. They mentioned so many things. And we hear that some persons are even just parking their, their EVs in the garages and all of that. I mean, what do you have to say about that?
So yes, you're absolutely right. And that's normal and a necessary transitional period for any new product, whether it's AI or ChatGPT or even internet long time ago. Or rideshare, when the new product comes to solve major issues, of course, there are a couple of issues around that we have to solve. And then from the perspective of someone like me doing startup in Ethiopia, that's where the opportunity lies because those problems are the problems that we want to solve. So I don't necessarily think that is negative way. It's just a transitional period where there are a couple of issues that early adopters face. Yeah.
Well, investors and entrepreneurs will always see opportunities in things like this. Now, beyond the ban, were there supporting policies or infrastructure to sort of make the switch very smooth and seamless? Because you're just talking about, these are transitional issues and all of those. Do we have supporting policies or even infrastructure to support this?
Yeah, one big thing is import duty that I mentioned. So obviously, if the fuel cars or fuel vehicles are banned, people have to move to electric. That's in a way support to transition to e-mobility. But at the same time, um, in the past, people have to pay 200 to 300% tax on fuel vehicles. And then right now, 0.15%, depending on the way that we import. If it's basically parts, it's called CKD. If it's CKD, then it's 0%. It's finished cars, then it's 15%, which is like more than at least five times, or depending on how we see, you can see that 10 times less import duty, which promote electric mobility for both customers and businesses.
Well, let's talk about the adoption now. How widespread is it? I mean, how many of the EVs the country currently boasts of are sort of outside the capital, which is Addis Ababa?
So to be fair, I don't know much. Of course, I heard some numbers, but I'm not sure outside Addis Ababa because I live in Addis Ababa, and our company also focus on urban mobility. So the numbers and the penetration rate that I can say with confidence is only in Addis Ababa, the capital. It's already above 100,000 cars, and again, that's huge because I came to Ethiopia, Addis Ababa 2 years ago. I haven't seen any single electric cars 2 years ago, and already 100,000. So I wouldn't be surprised that it's going to be 500,000 in 1 or 2 years. And already, again, I'm from Japan. In terms of the population size, both 120 million people in Japan and Ethiopia. Already Ethiopia in the last 1 year surpassed Japan in terms of number of electric vehicles. And then you see every day, because you see, first of all the car shops, they say they sell only electric vehicles because they are not able to import the fuel cars anymore. So everybody feel the rapid penetration, as well as some of the challenges that you mentioned, spare parts and charging stations as well.
Right. I mean, just like we've been talking about earlier, Ethiopia's plentiful, cheap, and renewable electricity sort of offers opportunities for local and foreign investors. I'd like you to talk to us about this. Is the private sector taking advantage of this? I mean, you're there, you came all the way from Japan to key into this, but how is it? How are, investors sort of latching on this?
Oh, definitely, definitely. So obviously there are a lot of other issues particular to Ethiopia, but in terms of, electricity and renewable energies, we even don't talk about the opportunity because we don't feel any pain in terms of doing business from electricity point of view. I used to live in Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, and Djibouti. For example, Djibouti, the electricity is 30 times, not 30%, 30 times higher than Ethiopia. So whatever business you want to do, the biggest headache is electricity. While in Ethiopia, we even don't talk about electricity because it's almost free.
Okay, another thing I would sort of like you to talk about is also the growing EV manufacturing capabilities. I'd like you to talk about the strides, and then opportunities and challenges in that particular subsector.
Yeah, I would say, so there are many challenges, obviously. Electricity, definitely no challenge. Labor, no challenge. It's one of the biggest, not behind Nigeria, but 120 million people. So labor and electricity, not a big issue. Land, not a big issue. Issue is more around supply chain, including customs, all that. For example, when we import some spare parts for customers, customers charge us sometimes like 1,000% tax, right? So it's because still the market, including customs and authority, are not well knowledgeable for electric mobility because such a change happened drastically in the last 1 to 2 years. So a lot of stakeholders, especially authority, don't have enough knowledge, and then they're very cautious, and then that would end up big cost for us. And if we don't incur on ourselves, that will be transfer to customers, right? So yeah, I would say the biggest issue is supply chain, as well as regulations that trying to keep up with this trend, but still it takes time for customs, supply chain, and then regulations to be structured well for this e-mobility.
Right, talking about this, I mean, I like what you said, because some persons have said the switch, they've called it aggressive. Some have said it's too fast and all of those things. So what do you think the government could have done better? Or, I mean, I want to believe there is still room for improvements. What are your suggestions really in that regard?
I'm not in the government. I'm a foreigner and I'm in the business side. So what we have to do is we want to adapt to whatever the government decides, right?
You want to adapt, but what happens when regulations are not helping you? You're bringing in your money.
Yeah.
You want to make profit, right?
One thing I would appreciate if they do better is informing, right? So whatever change that they implement, it's most of the times it's all of a sudden, like literally all of a sudden, oh, new regulation, new directive, new change, and then effect today or tomorrow, right? So whatever change we have to adapt, and we believe that business people have to adapt and have the ability to adapt. However, if it's all of a sudden, we don't have the time to prepare for the necessary change. So yeah, if you ask one thing that I wish they do better, and then I hope that they will do better in the future, is whatever change they make, whether it's customs, the forex, anything, inform public like 3-4 months in advance so that we can prepare. Then now it's each stakeholder to decide to adapt or not adapt.
Right. So talk to us about your outlook for the next, few years, and do you also see the industry growing significantly?
Oh, definitely. I mean, I mentioned that in the last even 1 year, 2 years ago, zero. Like I never seen single electric vehicles in Addis Ababa personally. When I lived here, right? Yeah, so in the last couple of months, it's significant change. So even we don't have to talk about 3-5 years, even 1 to 2 years, at least in Addis Ababa, I can clearly imagine how it's going to be looking like. And then I think that everybody agree if you live in Addis Ababa.
Now, back to regulations, I just want to take you back there. To ease adoption, the government said it would increase the number of electric vehicle charging stations. It will develop the grid stability quickly so it can support the EV charging network. Now, would you say it has delivered on this, or is it making remarkable strides towards achieving this in the foreseeable future?
Definitely not. It's not happening yet. I think they're in the process of building that. So I believe that it will be built. At this moment, definitely no. It's not happening as a user, right? Do I think that it's going to happen? Yes. And then what should we do as a company or private sector, including us, is what we need to do is accelerate the penetration of charging infrastructure, right? Yeah, I think I answer your question. Not happening yet. It's going to happen, and our job is to accelerate.
Interesting. I like the optimism there. But irrespective of the advances we've talked about, the industry sort of faces significant economic challenges. And I dare say it's not just the industry, even the country, right? And this could hinder its progress. Now, from a large economic deficit to the difficulties in securing foreign loans, these are issues. How concerning are they, and what impact are they having on your return on investment, even as an investor in that sector?
A lot of risk, huge risk, yes, definitely. So that's where also big opportunities there, right? Again, like as an entrepreneur, we see there's no problems, no risk. Also, there's no opportunity, which is most of the cases in Japan. That's why I'm not excited living and then doing something in Japan. Yeah, it's definitely concerning factor for majority of investors. So it's important to, as a foreign investor, by the way, I go around the world and raise money to invest in this project, right? So when I explain to potential investors, what really matters is to be very transparent and then share the risk side, which you mentioned, but at the same time, what's the return side? Yeah, so I would say when you're talking about ROI, there's a probability side, chance, probability, and then the size. So I would say the size is huge because of these risks, most of people give up, decided not to come to Ethiopia, right? Because too much risk. As a result, the return, if you make it, is huge. But probability, of course, there's a risk. So it's just how it is, and then that's my interpretation. So I explain to our investors, potential investors, and then make sure that they understand what they're jumping into. And then we, on the ground, we focus on the operation, solving problems of customers to maximize the chance to get biggest return, not in the short term, but in the long term.
Right. On the policy and government side, what are your thoughts on addressing low motorization rates, incomes, and inadequate grid and charging infrastructure? I want you to focus on the first two, low motorization and low incomes. I know you're probably going to say you don't want to advise the government, but what do you think can be done really to improve the socioeconomic, condition of people in Ethiopia? Because that's a huge contributing factor to the success or otherwise of this particular policy.
Actually, that's why we chose as a company. Actually, our company focus in the beginning right now on electric two-wheelers, electric motorbikes, because of these reasons. Because we want to increase motorization rate, but majority of people don't have enough money to purchase cars. So what can we do? Then we focus on relatively affordable mode of mobility, which is electric two-wheelers or electric motorbikes. That's what we focus, because people need to move around, as you mentioned, to boost economy, but people don't have money. So what can you do? Then we have to find solutions. So we focus on electric motorbikes to create jobs and then make the movement of the goods and people easier.
All right, Yuma, just before I let you go, in less than 10 seconds, can you tell us, do you think the government is actually working towards elevating the living standards of the people?
Oh, definitely. Otherwise, they wouldn't push the electric mobility. That's one of the reasons that they push to create jobs in a sustainable way.
All right, thank you so much, Yuma Sasaki, CEO and founder of Dodai, for your time and thoughts on the show today.
Thank you.